Alright guys, welcome back to another video on MMA.Unhinged. Today we are back with Oscar from MMA Heads with another podcast. We're going to be talking about our 2020 awards, our predictions, what's going to happen in 2021, and we're here to talk about that in this show. And we'll get off straight away, we're going to jump straight into it with submission of the year, Oscar. Who was your nominees and who did you give it to?
My nominees were at UFC 254. We saw Khabib defeat Justin Gaethje with a triangle choke in the beginning of the second round. That was an awesome submission. Khabib put himself on his back to get it. Gaethje looked like he didn't really have much defense for it, and what transpired after really made that submission even more special.
100% that is a...
Another
Oh, sorry.
Oh yes, another nominee I had was Ariane Lipski against Luana Carolina. That was on the Figueiredo Benavidez card on Fight Island. I think that one was really gnarly to look at, that knee bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third nominee was on that same card in the main event, Figueiredo and Benavidez. They had their rematch, and Figueiredo kept on knocking down Benavidez. And then he got him in a rear naked choke and choked the life out of him. You saw the eyes roll in the back of his head. I thought it was really impactful.
Yeah, 100%. That's some good nominees. Only the three nominees I think we're doing with every subject. So you had Benavidez, Khabib, and Ariane Lipski, and you gave it to Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yes, I did. I thought, the stakes involved were really the difference maker.
100%, I agree. What was on, as you said there, the stake. What was on? What could have happened if he'd lost? If he lost to Justin Gaethje, there's a lot on the line that night for Khabib. His undefeated streak. That O. If Khabib lost, that O would have been gone. Justin Gaethje would have took that O. He's 29-0 in MMA. That some of them, that record in MMA is unheard of. The only boxers, when you think about boxing, you think of records like that. In MMA, that sort of thing doesn't happen, and it's very surreal to see someone with a record like that. But moving on to my submissions, mine was sort of the same. I had a Khabib UFC 254. I had Ariane Lipski, and I also had he literally just pulled off a flying triangle.
Oh, Jimmy Flick?
Jimmy Flick, yes, they were my nominations. I had Jimmy Flick, Ariane Lipski, and Khabib Nurmagomedov, but I gave it to Ariane Lipski because I think that submission, it just looked nasty. The way she just grabbed that knee, pulled it back, and you just see the scream from Carolina
Yeah.
afterwards. It was gruesome. I didn't want to see it. Every time I watch it back, I just look at it and I just grimace and it's just dreadful to watch back. I don't like it. The knee just looks horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But yeah, they were my three nominations. I had Jimmy Flick, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Ariane Lipski, and I did give it to Ariane Lipski. I think that submission was just out of this world and absolutely, as you said there, as the Americans put it, absolutely gnarly. Absolutely gnarly that submission was.
Yeah, it's rare that you see a fighter express pain in the octagon. Everybody tries to hide it, but she could not in that case.
I don't think anyone could hide that. That was just the way she pulls that knee back. Oh, absolutely, just grimacing, absolutely grimacing. So we'll move on to the next award. I'll let Oscar introduce the next one. What one we got next?
We have the 2020 Event of the Year.
Okay, what are your
And what were
nominations?
your nominees?
Okay, I
Oh,
had UFC 254, UFC 256, and I had Hooker versus Poirier. And I believe,
I had
go on. What were yours?
UFC 256, UFC 249, and UFC 250.
Ooh, I like that UFC
Uh,
249. That was a really good card.
let's take a look at these cards. I thought that these fight cards on paper, some of them may have not been as strong as you'd have thought, but what ended up happening to those nights were just, it was crazy. I do
100%.
think this is one of the better years in UFC history. Let's take a look at these early prelims for UFC 49. We kick it off with Ryan Spann and Sam Alvey. That's not a bad fight. That could be on any main card. And then you got Bryce Mitchell and Charles Rosa. That was a grappling clinic right there. And Carla Esparza and Michelle Watterson. Let me remind you that Michelle Watterson had just headlined a fight night against Joanna Jędrzejczyk in her previous fight, and now she was on the prelims. We have Pettis and Cowboys rematch on the in the prelims. It's ridiculous. Stuff like this on this card is what got it nominated, and what happened was insane. And UFC 250, you had Nunes and Spencer. Everybody thought that was a terrible main event because we really didn't give Spencer a chance. But when you look at that night, we saw Garbrandt get possibly knockout of the year. We saw Sugar Sean O'Malley get possibly knockout of the year, and we even saw uh, a great um, a great performance by somebody like a Ian Heinisch against Gerald Mearshart. We saw who did he fight? Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher. Who did he fight on that card?
Could
Cody Stamann.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, Cody Salmon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big story. Cody Stamann had lost his brother that night.
Oh yeah.
It was a really good card. UFC 256. I don't need any. I don't think anybody needs a refresher on that card. It was the last pay per view of 2020. We saw awesome finishes all night long. We even saw 4 knockouts in a row. 4 knockouts in a row. That's pretty unheard of in the UFC
Wasn't it
at this
four
high
knockouts as
level.
well to kick off the card, if I'm correct, or something like that?
No, the first fight of the night was Chase Hooper and
Oh
Peter
yeah,
Barrett with
yeah.
the comeback of the year, possibly with that heel hook in the third round. That was amazing. And then the maybe the fight of the year in the main event. How can you say no to that card? And what was your winner for that event for that award?
I had. Let me quickly give a recap of the cards I had. I had UFC 254. I think that was just a huge card in general for the UFC that year, and 256, I think that has to be up there. Just the fights that it delivered. I think that main event really pushed it over the line for me. That main event was crazy for the flyweight division, and this was like flyweight division at the moment is probably the best we've ever seen it. And this was a division that was gonna UFC was gonna cut. You know they were gonna get rid of the 125 pounders, and now it's probably one of their best divisions that they've built up. They've probably look at the names they have in that division at the moment. We're talking about Manel Cape, Alexandra Pajota, and Tim Elliott, Brandon Royval, Devison Figueiredo, Joseph Benavidez, Brandon Moreno. Now the list goes on and on and on in the 125-pound division. It looks stacked. Jimmy Flick now just introduced himself to the 125-pound division. It's incredible. But moving on, I had 250, 256. I think the fights that night were incredible. But I also had UFC Fight Night Poirier versus Hooker. I think that fight there and the card was absolutely incredible. But I think I did give it to UFC 254. I think the stature of how much was on the line for Habib that night. We talked about that, and I think it was just a really really big event. How closely the Dubai natives they held Habib. He looked like a prince over there. The way the way they conducted himself when Habib was around,
Yeah.
it was crazy. He was like, what? I think he had like, a police escort to the arena. It
Yes,
was
he did.
it was ridiculous. This is a UFC fighter who's getting a police escort. This is things that are unheard of in the MMA world, and it was just incredible to see what happened that night. Habib went out there, did his thing, destroyed Justin Gaethje, beat him. Took him to the ground, submitted him with that triangle choke. Was going to go for the armbar, switched it because I think there was like before the fight he had like something to do with his toes or something like that. I don't know, but he submitted him at the end and he got that triangle choke and he improves to 29-0. Then he retires. I think that it was just a really good night of fights that night, and I think that was my event of the year, the one I enjoyed the most. And yeah, that's why I chose UFC 254.
I'm actually gonna say UFC 256 because that was actually like a shorter card. It was very digestible. Didn't really overstay its welcome. Every single fight delivered. I thought that there was some boring fights on the other cards that we mentioned. Even though the cards as a whole were great, I thought that every fight either had a finish or if it wasn't a finish, it was entertaining in some way. I guess the most boring fight you could say on 256 was Oliveira and Ferguson, but that fight was so significant that that didn't really matter. So
100%.
I'm gonna have to give it to 256. But also, I do think the fight night of the year was that Marais Sandhagen card. If you look at that card on the prelims,
Damn, yeah.
three Guys, this is something that's very remarkable. Three guys that were 8-0 got knocked out back to back to back. Isn't that crazy?
That is
Undefeated
crazy. I
guys
forgot
just
about
getting
that.
knocked out like it was nothing.
Hmm.
Impa Kasanga and I got knocked out.
With one of the.
Rodrigo and
Mhm.
Nascimento got knocked out. And then KB Buller got knocked out. Those all happened back to back to back. That
Yeah,
was amazing.
and it produced probably one of the greatest knockouts that the UFC has ever seen with Joe Buckley. Sorry that I'm trying to sort my light out here. Everything's going wrong at the moment. But yeah, as you said there, Mahari Sanhagen had Joe Buckley, produced probably one of the best knockouts the UFC has probably seen within the decade. Absolutely incredible knockout. We'll get onto that later this evening with the award show. But next up, we'll probably what do you fancy moving on to?
I said we move on to the 2020 Breakout Fighter of the Year.
Okay, who's your nominees? Who you got?
I had Merab Dvalishvili,
Oh,
Kevin Holland, and Marvin Vittori.
great. I like them nominations, especially like the Marab one. Yeah, I feel like he maybe didn't get enough credit this year. Had a great, fantastic 2020.
Yes, if you look back at his 2020, he had an awesome year. He landed 5% of all takedowns in 2020 in the UFC. Isn't that crazy? He went 3-0. People forget that because one of his wins was before the pandemic against Casey Kenny. He out wrestled a guy who used to be like a really big name in judo. And you look at Kevin Holland, the only and let's talk about Marab, what he did as well with that win against John Dodson. He literally sent John Dodson out of the UFC. Who John Dodson had a competitive fight with Mighty Mouse, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And he remember last year, if you told me who Marab was, I honestly couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Hmm.
And now he's number 12 in the world. And bantamweight is one of the best divisions the UFC has right now.
Yeah, as you put it perfectly, as probably the best division, if not the best. Like it's probably the most stacked division that we have in the UFC at the moment. To get into the top 15 at the bantamweight, you've got to have some ability. I think about Sugar Sean. I don't think he's even ranked anymore in the bantamweight, or if not on the cusp
He's
of.
not
He's not even ranked. Rohani
Song
Barcelos,
Yadong.
yeah,
Yes, Song
Barcelos.
Yadong.
He's not even ranked in the bantamweight division. You've
And
got to
he's fighting a Sun
a
Sao.
Sensao, yes, and you just got to think about to get into that top 15 in the bantamweight division. You got to have it. You got to be something special to get in that top 15. So
Yes, and
carry on.
Kevin Holland, we really don't really say it, but he went 5-0. That's a big deal. More wins than anybody else. He's only the third fighter to ever do that in UFC history. I believe the other guys to do it were Roger Huerta and Neil Magny, and he beat Anthony Hernandez, Joaquin Buckley. We already talked about him. Darren Stewart, who's no walk in the park. Charlie Ontiveros, a welterweight from the from the Bellator, and he ended it with Jacare Souza, who I thought he would have been the champion if Bisping wasn't getting these fights against favorable competition, like say Dan Henderson or GSP, who was like a retired champion. I thought that Jacare Souza could have been champion during that time.
Yeah. So
And
who
if
did you give it to?
out of those two, I had to go with Kevin Holland, 5-0. Some people even said he was fight of the year. I disagree with that. When you look at the competition he faced, not a single of them were ranked. And when you got champions who defended their belts more than once, how can you say no to the champions?
Yeah.
But I gave it to Kevin Holland.
Mhm.
Last year, he ended his year with a submission loss to Brendan Allen. And look at him now. Look at him now.
Exactly.
He's fighting Derek Brunson.
Mhm. In a main event as well.
Yes, March 20th, I believe.
Mhm.
And he ended up being ranked in the top 10 at number 10.
Yeah, our middleweight, division. That after his win against was it against Souza? I think Izzy was in attendance, or was it the one before that?
No, it was the Charlie Ontiveros fight on
Yeah,
Halloween.
yeah, that's it. Izzy was in attendance, called him out. That's a good little bit of a storyline between them. Hopefully, we get to
I
see
would
them.
love that.
Yeah, I would love that fight. I think the trash talk between Kevin Holland and Israel Adesanya, that would be something special.
And who were your nominees?
Nominees for Breakout Fight of the Year. I had obviously I include Hamzat Chimaev. I think everyone before 2020, everyone didn't know who Hamzat Chimaev was. That if you're an MMA fan, he just burst into the scene. He flew over in Dubai hoping for a UFC short notice fight. Got that. Destroyed on his debut. Was it against? Who was his debut
It
against?
was
John
against
Phillips. Was it John
the White
Phillips?
Mike Tyson. Yes,
John
the
Phillips.
White
Yeah,
Mike Tyson. Yes.
and then he defeated Reese McKee, and then he beat Jared Mershot in his recent outing. But yeah, I think he had an incredible 2020, and his rise to fame as well. When he came into the UFC, I think he had 15K followers, and now he's on like a million. It's incredible.
Yeah, 1.1. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think that now he was meant to schedule Leon Edwards. I was a couple of times, 3 or 4 times now. They're trying to reschedule that one again. I think they should have moved on with that fight and just run it down again down the line. I think it's just I don't want to happen a Tony Ferguson situation. Leon Edwards needs to fight. Just let him fight. And so yeah, hopefully they run that down. Hopefully they actually get a fight this time, Hamzat and Leon. But it's a great fight nonetheless. And this gets to show us, is Hamzat legit? Is it? I don't think he's beat any legitimate competition, so we can't really, go off who he's beat. But we're going to see against Leon Edwards if he's the real deal or not. This is a great fight, and I can't wait. But yeah, I had Hamzat Chimaev, Kevin Holland, and I probably would include Joaquin Buckley. But that loss to Kevin Holland was probably, what?
Yeah,
It wasn't. It
he
was.
would have.
Yeah, he would have made if he didn't lose to Kevin Holland.
Yes.
He definitely would have probably been my breakout fight of the year. But in this case, I had to give it to Kevin Holland. 5-0 in MMA in 2020. That's ridiculous. Most people don't even fight 5 times in a year, let alone get 5 wins back to back to back. It was an incredible year for him,
And
and some good names under his belt in the 2020 as well.
let's not forget he did that in 7 months. He didn't fight before the pandemic.
Exactly, incredible. In not
And
even a year, 7 months. If he fought before that pandemic, it could have been 6, maybe 7. We never know.
yeah, let me rattle off some other names I believe deserve some recognition as breakout fighter. Also, let me keep in mind that I did not include fighters that were were outside of the UFC in 2019 because I wanted to keep it like a UFC only. So like people that were having a tough time in the UFC, or maybe they just weren't that big of a name yet, and they really came out of their shell in 2020 and just became just put their name on just put their name in the mix with the bigger names. I said Marvin Vittori, he went 2-0, only 2-0, but let's not forget where he ended up. He ended up in the top 5 with wins over Carl Robinson and Jack Hermanson. I also said Marcin Tybura. He
Oh
never really
wow.
got the ball rolling, but he went 4-0.
Yeah, he had a great comeback.
And
Think about how what went wrong with him. Came back 4-0. You said incredible, incredible year for him.
yeah, and I also had to mention Giga Chikadze. I thought he debuted this year, but he actually debuted last year, and nobody really knew him until this year. He started getting these wins against pretty high level competition. Omar Moraz was undefeated when he fought him, and he's been looking great. He's karate champion, and I think he deserves somebody in the top 10 next because we've seen a really good skill set from him.
Maybe Davison Figueiredo has the shout of breakout fight of the year. He rejuvenated the
Yeah,
125-pound division. Think about how good that 125-pound division. He just made it that more interesting. If Figueiredo is fighting on a card, I think everyone's going to be watching now.
yes, a lot of people would have not even mentioned Figueiredo as a top contender last year in the UFC. I was actually listening to Ari Helwani's show, his award show with New York Rick, and he was talking about the people that he considered to be breakout fighter of the year, and he actually mentioned Figueiredo. He said, "I wouldn't have known who he was if he slapped me in the face last year," and now I think he's one of the best in the UFC.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have even known if he cut your hair last year because he was a barber. He would have cut your hair last year and you wouldn't
Yeah,
have known. It was incredible.
yeah.
His rise to
If he
fame
made
is
your
ridiculous.
sushi,
Yeah, his rise
yeah,
to fame in 2020 was ridiculous.
yeah,
And the
yep.
defenses against when he won the belt against Benavidez, the first time, he couldn't have won it, but that was in 2019 and 2019, I believe. And then they ran it in 2020. I think he won the belt, or was that
Yeah.
2019 still?
Uh. What was in 2019?
Oh, did he fight Benavidez both in 2019?
Yes, it was in. It was in February and July.
Oh, okay. Then he fought Perez, and then yeah, okay, I got you.
Moreno. Yes.
Yeah, a good year for him though. 2-0 in 2020.
No, he's actually 3-0-1
Wait, so he fought Benavidez in 2020.
twice.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know this year has been like a it's been like a time warp, you know.
What? That feels so long ago.
Yes, he's 3-0-1.
So he's 3 and that puts him up even a lot in my eyes
No
actually.
losses,
No losses, yeah.
unbeaten in 4 title fights.
That's incredible. To even get in a title fight and to even get to that point in your
And he
career
didn't
is
lose. He didn't
fantastic. And
lose.
he didn't even lose. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I think that will he'll. I think he's on my list anyway for fighter of the year, but we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, let's yep.
I got to do my breakout fight of the year. I don't think I did. I choose Kevin Holland, didn't I? Yeah, yeah.
I think you said Chimaev.
No, I think I chose Kevin Holland. I think it was 5-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5-0. I think he had a great year.
Yeah,
Beat
I
some good names.
decided it was Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin with 5-0. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Should we say fight of the year?
Fight of the year,
Fight,
absolutely.
fight of
Yes.
the year. So my nominees I had obviously is Zhang versus JJ. I think that fight was absolutely incredible. And then I had Hooker versus Poirier. I think that fight was ridiculous. And then also I had the last fight of the year, Davison Figueiredo versus Brendan Moreno. That was my three, that my top two. But some honorable mentions, I've got to say that Nathaniel Wood versus Casey Kenny, that was a great fight.
Oh,
Or the Frankie
the
Edgar
pace
versus
those
yeah,
boys set.
or the Frankie Edgar versus Pedro Munoz. That some great fights in 2020. We were stacked, and this is probably one of the worst years for the UFC. But then they turned it round straight after the coronavirus, and they proved that they probably made it to from the start of the worst to the best. They it started so badly for the UFC. And then they got it all together, and it was probably the best year the UFC has had in probably a long while.
Dana said they broke every record, basically except the attendance record, of course.
Yeah, who was your nominees for fight of the year?
Fight of the year, it was similar to yours. I said Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk at UFC 248. And in March before this pandemic, it was the second last fight with fans this year, with
I,
fans
I
last
think I know
year,
who you're gonna go for.
and then I said Hooker and Poirier.
Yeah,
Those boys, those boys had the best round of the year. In round two, those guys swung for the fences. I thought Hooker was gonna knock him out. And the third nominee I said was Figueiredo and Moreno in UFC 256 back in December. That was awesome. That fourth round was amazing as well when Moreno started beating him up.
yeah, 100%. A great year of fights. So who did you give it to?
And I, of course, gave it a Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
There is
And
no
one of the more
competition.
deciding factors
Mm,
in me giving it to them was they never stopped. In the
yeah,
other fights, those guys clearly were fatigued near the end because they really gave it their all in those previous rounds. But Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Zhang Weili, they never stopped. They just kept on going. I was actually at a friend's house for that, and people really didn't care too much about the fight heading into it. And by the end, everybody was on the edge of their seat and nobody knew who had won the decision. But we kind of knew because of the hematoma on Joanna Jędrzejczyk's head.
yeah. That was a nasty hematoma. It is ridiculous. She looked like an alien. Something out of Monster Inc. After that fight, it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
That was my fight of the year as well. There is no really any competition. The pace them ladies set for 25 minutes, a championship fight, just absolutely going at it, absolutely incredible. As you said there, in the other two fights, they kind of slowed down a little bit, but these women. They went at it for 25 minutes straight. There was no stopping between any minute, any round. They were going at it. It was an incredible fight. and we showed, the mentality of the champion Weili Zhang, that she is a championship level material fighter, and she looked good in that fight, and hopefully we get to see her return soon. And hopefully there's some little bit of title picture and whether what's happening with that division at the moment. A little bit of uncertainty. Does Rose want to fight? Does Rose not want to fight? She says she does. Dennis says she doesn't. It's a bit uncertainty. Hopefully we get to see her back soon. Absolutely incredible war between Zhang versus JJ, and hopefully we get to see him back soon.
Yeah, I do know that that fight set like a record or something. It was like the second most significant strikes in a fight ever. I think number one was Holloway and Ortega,
Hmm.
and that was number two with 351 significant strikes landed.
Oh wow, that's incredible. They set a pace that is probably would never be matched in a title fight in a women's fight ever again. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I do believe that Weili Zhang commented on the post. She thanked you for the award, so we don't need a acceptance speech from you, Weili.
Not this time around. Maybe next year if she's in another war.
All right then.
What should we move on to? KO of the year, and then we'll leave fighter of the year for last, and maybe come back in the year
Yes,
if you like.
absolutely.
All right. So who was your
All
fight? Was it KO of the year? KO of the year.
Yes, KO of the year. These KOs this year were off the chain. I do believe that we saw possibly the greatest knockout of all time between Impa Kasanganay and Joaquin Buckley. He called it a Wakanda style spinning back kick. It was just out of this world. It's the type of things you see in movies, and you're like, that wouldn't happen in real life. I watch MMA. I know what happens in real fights. That doesn't happen, and that happened, and the way he fell, the way his eyes rolled in the back of the head, the way John Gooden and Dan Hardy stood up in just pure amazement, it's just really up there for me. And the other nominees for me were Garbrandt and Sun Sao. At the end of the second round, Garbrandt looked like he was very confident in himself. He grabs the fence and he just swings for the fences with 1 second left, and he knocks out Rafael Sensao cold. He was on a three-fight skid. He had gone to sleep 3 times in a row, and doing that to a former contender like Rafael Sensao was just, it was a really big deal for him, and that's why it's on this list. And the third one, I had to go with Kevin Holland against Jacare Souza. That was amazing. We rarely see that. The only other time we saw that was between Nico Price and Randy Brown, where I do believe that Randy Brown was in side control, and Nico Price just started raining down hammer fists from the bottom, and he put him to sleep. And that's what happened here. Again, Kevin Holland said he had a dream about this. He didn't want to get bullied by Jacare, and Jacare thought he was safe because I do hear that he's opening a jiu-jitsu school in Florida. He's always doing jiu-jitsu, and in jiu-jitsu you can't punch a guy in the face. So when he got punched from the top, he was just very confused, and before he knew it, his lights were turned out.
Yeah, 100%. That my KO of the years was Joey Buckley. That incredible spinning kick. That Dan Hardy said it was something to do with taekwondo. Leg on the foot on the bag, spin kick, land it on the chin. Brilliant, absolutely incredible knockout that was. And then I had Cody Garbrandt versus Rafael Sensao. I think that was incredible. The way he loaded up that punch, it was like all the way from down from like his kneecap and just swings. It was ridiculous. And he lands clean on that chin and puts the lights out from a Sensao. Incredible knockout. Ridiculous. And I think my third one will probably end up being Kevin Holland versus Souza. I think the way he done it, a lot of people think when Kevin Holland, Souza got Kevin Holland to the ground, it would be that would be game over. Souza would, look for a submission, advance to submission, tap him out eventually. But Kevin Holland looked good on the ground. He was hitting him with the ground shots, them elbows to the head as well when he got to the ground, elbowing him to the head, and then eventually got that finish, in kind of a stacked guardish. Souza was stood on his knees. Kevin Holland steps up, hits him with that short right hook from the ground. hurts him, and then just finishes him off them nasty, unnecessary hammer punches. But it was like a murder scene when I watched that knockout. The way he did it, and the way Souza was bent over, and Kevin Holland was just on top of him, boom, raining punches. It was like a murder scene. I couldn't watch it. It was ridiculous. But nonetheless, there was one clear winner here. It has to be Joaquin Buckley, one of the best knockouts we've ever seen in the UFC, and one of maybe the best knockouts in the decade of 2010 to 2020. That really could be the best knockout we've ever seen in the UFC. An absolutely incredible knockout. So my KO of the year would have been Jogan Buckley versus Impo Sagna.
Yeah, I gotta agree there.
So we got maybe we should do upset of the year, maybe comeback of the year.
Yes, upset of the year.
Upset of the year. Okay, so would you like to go first for upset of the year?
Yes. These nominees were really interesting for me because I didn't really go off the odds. I don't know how the odds work in the UK necessarily, but over here in the United States, we do a plus and minus system. A plus is a underdog. So it's like the bigger the number is, the bigger the underdog they were. So let me tell you right here, Shannon Dobson and Mariagapova was crazy because Shannon Dobson had a losing record heading into the fight. I believe her record was 3-4. So everybody was writing her off. It was looking like a boxing matchup, to be honest, where you just bring in this can for somebody just run them over, and that did not happen. She gassed out, and she got the ground, and Shannon Dobson got the ground and pound finish. That was actually in Vegas. That was one of the bigger upsets we've ever seen. I do think it was the biggest in history. When you look at the odds, I believe it was the biggest in history. If you want to know the odds, she was a plus 1,150 underdog. That was crazy. That was the biggest underdog she was on a betting site. If you want to look at the others, Roxanne against Macy Barber at the first event of 2020, the Connor Cowboy card, and that was crazy because Barber got injured and Modafferi was able to just take her down and control her and get some ground and pound. She didn't finish her, but she got the unanimous decision, and she was a plus 525 underdog. And the other one I had wasn't the biggest underdog, but the stakes here and everything. It was a main event. Derek Brunson and Edmund Shabazian. That was a really big deal because Edmund was going to be like people were saying, oh, he's the next John Jones. He's going to be champion when he's 21 or something like that. And Edmund just was not prepared to face somebody as good as Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson ran him over. He did some serious damage to that kid. That like remember he had gone to the stool. He was very wobbly. Herb, I believe Herb waved his arms, calling off the fight, but then he was like, "Nah, never mind, never mind." And then Edmund went out there and he just got demolished.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I also have to mention Marlon Cheeto Vera and Sugar Sean O'Malley. Everybody was saying, "Oh, Sugar Sean O'Malley's he's gonna, just knock him out in the first round." That didn't happen, and now we got a big star in Marlon Vera. What were your nominees?
And as you said there, I had Shanna Dobson versus Mariagapova. I think that, as you said there, the betting line was ridiculous. Imagine if you put, a £10 or whatever, $10 on Shanna Dobson, you would have made a lot back.
I do believe that would result in like a $1,000 profit, something crazy,
That's
something
incredible.
crazy.
That's incredible. I don't even know how to work the stocks on GTA 5. I don't know what to do on, betting. I have no idea. I have no idea about betting or
Yeah,
stocks or anything like that.
I legally can't I can't legally bet right now, but I keep my eyes on the lines, for when I turn 21.
Oh, yeah, you can't bet in the UK till 21. USA till 21.
Until I'm 21. I
Oh,
can always
that's
get my dad to bet for me, but
oh, that
yeah,
sucks,
we'll
man.
see how that works out.
In the UK, it's 18, so I'm legally allowed to bet.
Oh, well, I might have to give you some tips. I do believe I was like 76% correct last year. I think I calculated it.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't bet though, which is I'm not a betting man. I don't like to get into the gambling addiction and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. I would hate to be a degenerate and just ended up
Yeah,
being a degenerate. That would suck. But hey, if it makes it more exciting, you do you.
yeah,
But I
but
think I will end up doing it. I
yeah,
got some friends who make some serious bank off of it.
exactly. I'm on pub sports quite a lot, and they do a lot of betting over there on pub sports radio. And I think it would be just be really good just to have that few bets on there, and just the tension. The reason why I don't bet is because I like to be neutral between the both the fighters, and I feel like if I bet on someone, I'm gonna want them to win.
Yeah, that's all. That's obviously the thing. There's actually some sites where you can like where they do free contests. Like I know ESPN over here where I watch the events. Uh, over there on their website they give away like I believe it's 5 grand for every pay per view. All you got to do is just get the most picks correct. I've been in the top 5. I've been in second place. I just never get that number one spot, but one day I will.
Yeah, one day you'll get it. So as we'll talk about my upset of the year with Shadow Dobson versus Mariagapova, Roxanne Modafferi versus Macy Barber, and I think one what needs to be included probably was maybe not as most as the other two, but I think Jan Blatchevitz versus Dominic Reyes. I think a lot of people thought Dominic Reyes was going to, beat Jan after his close fight against John Jones. And then Jan, with his Polish power out of nowhere, that huge left hand, drops Dominic Reyes and finishes the fight. I think Jan was definitely upset coming into that fight. I think, a lot of people, thought he was going to lose against Dominic Reyes. And he went in there, got that title, and now he's the UFC light heavyweight champion. I feel like he's might, and now he's got a stiff test though in front of him. He's got Israel Adesanya stepping up from middleweight. We'll see how that fight goes on. But my upset of the year has to be Shauna Thompson versus Mariagapova. No one gave her a sniff in that fight, and she came out and she finished her. She finished the fight. It was incredible. A lot of people were high on Mariagapova as well in her debut. It was against Hannah Cyphers, I believe. She went on there, put a good clinic. She looked good. Came against Shannon Dobson. Even Dana White was high on her. He wanted a quick turnover from Mariagapova. I remember she beat Hannah Cyphers, and Dana White says, "We like her. We want her to have a quick turnover." She has a quick turnover against Shannon Dobson. Then she loses. She gets finishes. An absolutely incredible story for the 2020. Shauna Dobson, as you said there, 3-4. If she lost that fight, she could have been cut from the UFC. It's probably a job-ending loss. She would have got cut, especially with the UFC how they are. She probably would have been cut then, and she got that win, a huge underdog. And if you betted on her, you're an absolute living legend. You probably made a lot of money that night from her.
Absolutely.
All right, so final one before we let everyone go. Fighter of the year. Who did you choose and why?
All right, here are my nominees. I had to go with Jan Błachowicz. What he said, we just mentioned his big upset win against Reyes. But before that, people forget this. People forget about all the fights before the pandemic. People act like the pandemic was like the whole year for the UFC. But before that, back in February, he put Corey Anderson's lights out in the first round and sent him to Bellator. He basically he gave him extreme brain damage. Corey Anderson was hiking a month later and he just blacks out. He collapses. Like that kind of brain damage caused by that guy's power is it's insane. It's bad for your health. And the second nominee I went with Israel Adesanya. He was on pace to becoming a big star last year, and this year he blossomed into this like really huge star, this big superstar that we're gonna see fight for a second title next year, and this year actually in March against Jan Blachowicz that I previously mentioned. He beat Yoel Romero. That was a terrible fight, but if you get your hand raised against Yoel Romero, I don't have anything bad to say about you because Yoel Romero's a beast. And he beat Paulo Costa, the guy who beat Yoel Romero, and he absolutely schooled him and put on a legendary performance. So that's why he was able to be nominated. If he put on another bad performance, I would have said no. But the third nominee I went with was Davison Figueiredo. As we previously mentioned, he's 3-0-1, and they were all title fights. He never lost in a title fight. The Benavidez title fight, the first one, that was in February. Benavidez was the only man who could win the belt that night, but that didn't matter. Figueiredo still went out there and knocked him out. The headbutt may have played a factor in it, but I do think he would have won anyway. Besides the fact that I had picked Benavidez before the fight, but once I saw him in there, I saw how good Figueiredo was, and then he was able to clear his name with a weight cut, the headbutt, and choke him out. And then he went in there against Perez. He chokes him with a guillotine in 2 minutes, and then he has a quick turnaround 3 weeks after with another brutal weight cut, and he goes to a trial with Brandon Moreno. And let's be honest, if that point was not taken away, the judges would have given it to Figueiredo. That's the only reason it was a draw. So Figueiredo, to me, is fight of the year. With something doing things like that makes you. I give credit to people that do things like that. 3 weeks, a 3 weeks in between title fights. That's just unheard of. You never see that. Stipe Miocic only wants to fight one time a year. He's like refuses to fight like 2 times, even in a year where he doesn't take a lot of damage. He just refuses to fight that often. And when a guy like Figueiredo, who does these insane weight cuts, does it, I gotta give him credit.
I agree. I've also got him on my list. But who's your fighter of the year, Tony?
Oh yes, I went with Davison Figueiredo. The things he did, I gotta give him his due.
Yeah, you pretty put it nail on the head right there. Everything you said there was correct. Davison Figueiredo was in my list. I also had Kevin Holland. I think he had just had a really good, solid 2020 year, but he just didn't, as you said there, just didn't really make it, good enough because Davison Figueiredo title fights, 3-0-1, looked absolutely incredible. And my last one was a bit surprising. I thought to myself, I had Valentina Shevchenko. She defended her belt twice. She defended her belt against Jennifer Maia, and the first one's gone out of my head, but I can't.
It was Caitlin Shukagian at
Yeah,
UFC
mhm.
247, the
she
Jones Reyes card.
yeah, she finished it. I finished her in that fight, and then Jennifer Maia. It wasn't the best defense in my opinion. I think there was a little bit of flaws that we saw in Shevchenko's game a little bit, but she still looked dominant in that fight. Got over that fight, but we've seen that she's very vulnerable. She got taken down and controlled on the ground as well. But I feel like that Figueiredo man. He was incredible 2020, and he has to be the fighter of the year, and that is my fighter of the year. Davison Figueiredo. An absolutely incredible 2020 for him. He lit up that division, and now it's probably one of the best divisions that the UFC have at the moment. Absolutely incredible year for the man, and made a lot. Hopefully, he gets a new contract as well. Gets that pay-per-view points as well. That's ridiculous that he's not getting pay-per-view points.
Yeah, I do believe that you for sure get pay-per-view points after two successful title defenses. So, for that Brandon Moreno rematch, he better get paid because the kinds of performances he puts on, he should get compensated for.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Well, I think that's the end of 2020 awards with me and Oscar. I think that's all we got for you today. And tune in next week where we'll be talking about maybe Conor McGregor and Conor McGregor versus oh my god, how did I forget that? Dustin
Dustin
Poirier.
Poirier.
Oh my god, they're probably one of the biggest fights of 2021, and I've got it out of my head. Dustin versus uh Conor McGregor. Oh my god,
Conor McGregor, yes.
and then Holloway versus Cater.
Calvin Cater,
Yeah,
the
what an absolute
Boston Punisher.
fantastic fake. Yeah, what absolute fantastic fight
And
between
let's
the
not
two.
let's not forget it's going to be a Wednesday, Saturday schedule,
Hmm.
and Chiesa and Magny are going to go at it for 5 rounds in between there. That's a
That's a
that's a
solid fight.
that's a
That's a
really
really
tough
good.
fight to pick.
Yeah,
That's a
100%.
tough
I
fight to
agree.
pick.
We'll talk about
So
this. Yep. What's that?
yeah, I think next week we'll probably do a Holloway and Cater, and possibly the next week we'll do Conor McGregor's fight against Poirier and Chiesa and Magny. I guess that might be how we do it. But either way, we're gonna have a week where we're doing two fights. So that's gonna be a really long show. I hope you guys listen to all of it. And also, we might have some interviews coming to you shortly. We had interviews with Modestas Bakauskas, Kai Kamaka III, and Cameron Elsey, and those were all pretty good. And we'll bring more to you very shortly.
Yeah, I've got two more ready to go. I've just got to edit them. I don't know whether to release their names, but yeah, we got Chris Duncan and Randy Costa as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Randy Costa coming off that head kick. That was just amazing. I would like to mention him if you want to say if you want to talk about best knockouts of this year, that head kick was amazing.
100%. All right, we'll round it off, and we'll see you on next week's show. Thank you very much for joining. From me and Oscar, a very goodbye. Thank you very much.